Hi guys, and welcome to Open Ended. We're here with my friend Claudia Robles, the amazing filmmaker and anthropologist. We're so happy to have you here, even if it's
Thank
just
you.
through webcam. I know the last time we saw each other was just a quick hello and goodbye while I stayed inside of my car. Um, right now with this whole pandemic situation, of course, Claudia and I can't see one another face to face, but I did have to go pick up some equipment from her, which she went and placed in my, I guess, trunk of my vehicle. And then a quick hello from far away, and that was about it, which is so different from our usual when we get to hug each other and, like,
Yeah.
hang out the whole day and whatnot. So, how are you doing, Claudia? How are you holding up?
I'm doing pretty good considering like the lockdown and all of that. I try my best to do at least one productive thing a day because
Hmm.
you have to remember that it's okay if, you've kind of mentally shut down and you're not feeling creative or productive,
Right.
that you are resting and doing stuff that is, just fun and not productive.
Right, right now there's a lot of pressure for us to stay productive because we're like, we have all this time once and for all. So what are you doing with your time just sitting around watching Netflix? So it's been really kind of a balance between keeping myself really busy with projects, with hobbies, old and new hobbies, while also knowing that I have to take some time to myself, take some time to be silent and still and just kind of, I guess, absorb everything that's been going on in this crazy world lately. And yeah, I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah, and we have to be okay with having those days where you do absolutely nothing but on your
Exactly.
computer, on the couch, watching films, watching TV shows. Like
Yeah,
that
yeah,
is
yeah.
also okay.
Right,
don't
right,
don't
right.
feel pressure to 24/7 be doing something just because we're not working at the moment or whatever.
Right. And I know you and I, having, mutual friends in the film industry, a lot of them are so used to always being creative, always being active in some kind of production or project, at least if it's focusing on pre-production for a project or actually writing and whatnot. Actually, writing is a perfect thing to be doing right now, but maybe the inspiration isn't quite there because of
Mhm.
outside stressors with the pandemic, with unemployment, so on and so forth. Reverting back to what I was getting at, a lot of these filmmakers and artistic people are used to being active. And right now, they can't make teams, they can't make crews, they can't, and filmmaking is such a teamwork type of hobby and type of career. So, have you heard from any of your friends, like how they're coping in that situation, how they're staying creative?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are just either not being creative,
Yeah.
and we also have to remember that filming and being artistic and all of that those kinds of opportunities are almost a luxury
Hmm.
when you are facing no dangers in your real life. You have the
Hmm.
opportunity to do that. Right now our brains are kind of in flight and what is it, flight and
The
fight mode.
fight or flight, of
Yeah,
course.
it's like
Yeah.
more focused on survival, even if you're not like hunting and doing all these.
Right. No, it's true.
Yeah,
We kind of
but
are to a subconscious level, even. Like, we may not be aware that we're in this fight or flight mode because we're like, oh, we're safe. We're inside our homes. We're watching Netflix all day. Like, I'm not at
yeah,
risk
but
of
in
getting
in the
sick
back
or
of your
anything.
mind, you know that if you go out,
Hmm.
there's a danger to that. And
Right.
we kind of are uncertain about the state of the world and how long we're going to be in this lockdown, and it's that uncertainty that kind of kills a lot of us.
Right. 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 Have you seen any of your own, like, friends or acquaintances going through this pandemic, like, scared about how to stay creative and, like, I guess, active?
In terms of staying creative, people are making videos at home, or even like us starting podcasts where you don't have to be in close proximity
Absolutely.
to people. um, the people that are lucky enough to live with another creative type, with actors or filmmakers, are
Hmm.
creating their own content at home. That's very
Right.
fortunate. That's a very fortunate position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because I really want to just go out and shoot something and I can't, because even if you're a writer, for example,
Hmm.
it's it's not the same world. So when you sit down and write, it's, I don't know, a lot of the inspiration is not there. I have found in my own personal, because I was able to write a few days after the lockdown, but then after that, it's just kind of this mental shutdown. And
That yeah, that actually sounds exactly like what happened to me. Like I think the first few days of the lockdown, you and I are like, this is the perfect time to finally sit down and write. And
yeah,
both of us, I think, were starting to write. I think he had just started a draft on a short film, and me, I had just started like an outline of sorts for a short. And it did not last. Like the inspiration just got drained out of me where I was like, this world that I'm writing about has nothing to do with my current world, so I don't feel inspired to talk about it anymore, or at least at this point in time.
I think a huge part of that too is we're
Yeah.
not getting a change of scenery.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
we're kind of, stuck in the same space, and the only way to go out is by driving. But,
Right.
driving by stuff is not nearly the same as
Experiencing
experiencing.
it, yeah.
So,
Exactly.
but I think a lot of us are trying our best to do stuff outside of that too, to kind of work on ourselves,
Work on
whether that's
ourselves, yeah.
working out, reading, like instead of creating art, taking
Mhm.
in art,
Sure.
catching up
That
on shows, watching films.
No, that's a
Just
great
the
way to put
typical,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Claudia. Like taking in art right now. As you mentioned in the beginning, like we don't have to be actively, creating things to like be okay in the middle of all this chaos. But I think it's a great point to say that we're still absorbing in art to kind of, I guess, fill that like hole or fear that's going on right now in all of our brains about the uncertainty of things. I think filling that with inspirational content, and much like you said, looking into ourselves and doing all the self work. Right now is
Mhm.
like the perfect time for that.
Exactly.
Yeah, you said you were doing a little bit of exercise. Is that what you've been kind of using to do some
Yeah,
little self
so
work? Yeah,
this has been very stressful for everybody, and stress causes a
sure.
lot of whether it be physical or mental,
Mm-hmm.
not damage, but it takes a toll on you.
Sure.
So I've tried my best to do a workout at least once a day, just to
That's
kind of,
great.
in those moments of frustration, you might tend to get a little bit more irritable and angry.
Yep.
So you got to
No,
have some release, and I think working out is a great way.
sure. I know all about that lately. Yeah, we're definitely a lot more irritable lately. I think that goes, um, it just goes hand in hand with our situation right now. Like everybody is going to be kind of a little bit more on edge than usual. So I think we have to be a lot more patient with one another and with ourselves. So I think it's
Yeah,
great that you point
definitely.
that out. So yeah, it's funny that you bring up the exercising thing. I think a lot of us are trying to bring in some physicality into our day because now we're like stuck on couches and like computer chairs. We're not out and about in the world. So I've been adding a little bit of like yoga. It's something that I used to do years ago and I finally returned to it. I've been doing it like mostly in the mornings, kind of to start my day, get my energy going, because it's so easy to just lay there and think about everything that's going on and how overwhelming it all is. And it's such a like healthier routine for me to just get up, do the yoga, do something that moves my body, and I feel so much better like instantly. So I'm sure it's been similar for you when you've done some cardio and dance and whatnot.
Yeah. And you've been meditating as well, right? Is
Yeah,
that part of your yoga routine,
so it's
or is that
actually
separate?
a lot. It's very separate. What I tend to do is meditation like halfway through the day or in the evening, like before bed. I've also kind of dabbled a little bit in the overnight meditations, guided meditations, which is like you put on your headphones and you listen to like these guided meditations the entire night. Even in your like subconscious state, you're supposed to kind of like take in like the good messages that these videos are trying to like instill. Um, but what's been the most beneficial for me is the ones where I'm awake. Like I don't really know how much the subconscious level has really affected me. I just do those because they help me go to sleep. Um, but the ones that I'm doing when I'm awake, either in the late afternoon or just before bed, have really just kind of given me so much more like peace of mind, letting go of like emotions that I'm harboring, emotions that I'm not even sure are there the entire day, that I don't even seem to feel or fully address during the day. And then like once I'm meditating, like they are just pouring out, and I feel so much lighter at the end of it all that I go to sleep in a better mindset. And
So you physically feel lighter too?
yeah, the physicality, you actually feel like you release so much of like your bad emotions, negative emotions, and it's been crazy. For me, it's been working to do the guided meditation specifically. Not so much like I haven't mastered it to the point where I can just sit in silence and meditate on my very own. Like, I still need the little crutch of a guided meditation where someone like is softly speaking to you, guiding you through like this, process. It sounds cheesy, but once you like look into different types of guided meditations, you could find like one that just suits your personality and what you're looking for, and it does so much for you. Like I felt a huge change in me in the last, few months, just given the work that I've been putting in, and it's been really, really eye-opening. Like, I've done meditation in the past, but I don't think I've ever done it quite as consistently, and with such benefits before. So, yeah. Have you ever tried it, Claudia? Meditating?
No, I never have actually. I mean, I took a yoga class
Mm-hmm.
at City College once or twice,
Yeah.
and it. I mean, there was a few times where at the end the professor would have us do like this meditation, but I don't know if it was actually meditating or just like
Right.
laying there
Mm-hmm.
and listening to a story,
Oh,
and you're
okay.
supposed to picture yourself in this setting, etc.
Oh, that definitely
But
sounds like meditation to some extent, yeah.
but I mean, other than that, and on my own, I've never done meditation before.
Got it, got it. Yeah, I actually took some like similar classes as yours where there were like yoga classes that kind of incorporated a little bit of like meditation practice into it. And it would be something similar like that. Like we would lay down and like not necessarily a story, but it would be more like imagery of like, oh, now you feel like lighter, or you're like letting go of like tension that you feel here or there. But what you're mentioning, where it's like story driven, like, can you tell us a little bit more about that? What you remember from it?
I mean, what I remember from it, it would be like picture yourself here, like on some island,
Mm-hmm.
and now feel the sand beneath you, and then
Right.
feel yourself floating up, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I don't think it went really into much debt because it was
Mm-hmm.
probably like the 5 to 10 minute, like the last part of the class, the last 5 or 10 minutes.
Right. That's
So
actually, yeah. Go ahead.
it wasn't that
Mhm.
involved.
Got it, got it. No, that's actually exactly what some guided meditations can be like, where they kind of guide you to this visual space, like, oh, you're on the beach, like this empty beach, and, how
Mhm.
does it feel with the wind in your face, and so on and so forth. And those kinds of meditations have been, I don't do them quite as frequently as the other types, but they have been really nice and kind of liberating right now that we're in this like semi lockdown. Because we get to visualize places that we can't be at right now. So that has been really nice. Like, there was this one great meditation I did. I don't know if you're familiar with Jay Shetty. I can never pronounce his name. He's like
No.
this former monk that does meditations on Facebook and Instagram every morning with a bunch of people tuning in at once. He's like an inspirational speaker as well. And he did this one where you are on a beach. Like, I think he created some kind of like tree house on the beach on the sand that you could like retreat to in your mind if you ever needed to get away from like your surroundings and you just wanted to get out of the house within your mind. And that was so powerful. Like, I had never done any kind of meditation that physically or mentally took me somewhere, but it felt physical, if that
I
makes
mean, that's
sense.
definitely beneficial right now that we can't physically really go out and do
Exactly.
anything.
Yeah.
And I mean, not through meditation from my end,
Yeah.
but playing Animal Crossing,
Sure.
which was released, perfect timing for quarantine and lockdown.
Yeah, exactly.
It's kind of a little bit like living vicariously through your character who can
Right.
actually go on a plane and travel and live on a deserted island or whatnot.
You can actually go on planes. I didn't even know that. I've only played like the old
Yeah.
version of it where you go in a little
You can
train.
So you can go to your airport,
Mhm.
and if you have the code, or if a friend of yours opens their island gates,
Yeah.
you can visit them.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. So yeah, there's actual
Yeah.
travel allowed within the game. So it's something that's like kind of an escape for you in times of uncertainty in our actual world. So that's
And
awesome.
then also, I think with any video game, it gives you tasks to do,
Mhm.
especially the type of game that Animal Crossing is. Like, you have to do this every day, etc. So it
Sure.
like fills you with a sense of accomplishment,
Yeah.
even though it's a fake world. But you know,
That's awesome, though. I know a lot of people have been kind of, using Animal Crossing for that very nature of like escapism and like being able to live vicariously, as you've said. So,
I wonder if there's conspiracy theories. I'm sure there are, that Animal Crossing planned
I
all
was
of
just
this.
gonna say that. Like, I was thinking that, but I didn't say it.
Yeah. So people actually have 24/7 to play.
Right,
Not that you should play that much.
I
but-
know you and John have kind of toned it down a little bit in recent weeks, or at least John has with Animal Crossing.
Yeah, no, I have
Yeah.
too. I mean, part of it is being involved with stuff like this, doing a podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, now I'm actually doing something I'm responsible for in
Sure.
real life. So it does feel good to do that too.
That's awesome to hear.
And it's like, I actually have a reason not to play today. You know what I mean?
Right. It's kind of like with anything. Like, I was just trying to see like how many of us are just like waiting around until we get like the go, like, oh, the economy is opened up, like, go back to work, go back to school. But yet so many of us are just sitting around like mindlessly, like just waiting for that moment. But I think we have to kind of live in our circumstances more in a way where we accept that as our world right now, and not constantly be seeking out like, when is this going to end, because we don't even know if the economy does open up partially as it has been in recent like days and weeks. I don't think things are going directly back to normal anytime soon.
No, not for a long time.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm not a business owner, but I can see, kind of their desperation as they lose more and more money.
Sure,
each week,
restaurants and
some have to go bankrupt. Because
right.
I'm fine. I mean, I can see my family, and I'm not like, I haven't taken any big financial hits.
Right.
So I'm okay at the moment, but that's not everybody's situation. And I think it's, people that are not doing that well, who are either completely isolated by themselves, or this has taken a big toll on their wallets.
Yeah.
That maybe are
laid off, furloughed, whatnot. Yeah, there's a lot of that uncertainty going on, even in just like my acquaintances circle. I've seen people, fully lose their jobs. Some people get like laid off, furloughed, and then others maybe get cut hours. So they're doing, instead of full-time, they're doing part-time. So that's really hard when you've kind of set yourself up to live in these more expensive apartments. Maybe you have a mortgage, maybe you have car payments, you have credit debt, I don't know, you have student loans, and now you're set up in a way that you were surviving off of this full-time job. And now it's like, what do you do? How do you pay all your necessities and obligations when you're living off of unemployment, maybe? That's just a lot of stress.
Unemployment is enough for some people to live off of because of the lifestyle they had before the quarantine. But like you said, people that have, maybe just took out a new car, or they recently moved to a new apartment that was more expensive because they thought they would be fine.
Exactly.
And now this happens. Yeah, it's definitely rough, and I'm so grateful for the position that I am in currently. But I can't imagine. I mean, I'm sure there's also people going homeless.
Right. Having to move back home. A lot of people I've been seeing that have been like grown adults, grown adults losing their jobs completely, their unemployment not coming in soon enough, bills just, one after another just coming in, and they're like overdue, having to move back home. It's just like, that's crazy. Like, that's the world we live in. And it's like,
and I mean, let there be no shame in that.
Sure.
Do what you got to do. whoever's going to help you out the most. And for most of us, that's our parents. So,
I mean,
and
yeah.
if you're living, with a group of people, whether that's your family or not, and that obviously cuts cost, definitely,
Right.
do what you need to do.
Yeah, and I mean, it's also kind of sad to think that there might be people out there that don't have those, like, people that they could rely on in those circumstances. Like, there's plenty of people that I know that just don't have anywhere to go. And they might lose their job, they did lose their job, either or, they just don't have anywhere to go and they feel stuck. They're figuring out whether this month they're going to eat properly or pay rent. Like, that's kind of insane to think about.
I mean, and on the flip side, for those that didn't lose their jobs, how are they coping with having to work during a pandemic?
Yeah, there's also that whole side of things. Yeah, that is also another stress. You have the stress of, now, am I going to get sick? Am I going to get my family sick? Am I exposing myself and others? Do I have it? Do I, even if I don't have it, I'm surrounded by people that are not being themselves right now. A lot of people, if they're working in retail, or like, not retail's not quite open yet, but grocery stores, people are not as patient right now. People are a lot more on edge. The customers are just like being more pushy, and it's this whole aura. It's just, everything has changed even in their workplace. And they're still getting paid minimum for the most part.
Yeah. I mean, I know they're supposed to be getting hazard pay, I think, at the end of the year, but does that make up for putting yourself at risk?
Right, yeah.
Every day.
Right, is the
and
monetary
the
gain
that puts
more important than like the health? Yeah, exactly. No, that's a great question to think about. And I know for a lot of people, it's like, of course, you need the money. How are you going to survive without it? But it's also like, how much are you willing to put in jeopardy? Like, who are the people you're putting in jeopardy too? You have to ask yourself, am I putting my older parent at risk? Am I putting family, siblings, cousins at risk? Whoever you may live with, I have no idea. Am I putting my significant other at risk? You may, not quite live with your long-term boyfriend, but like, you're going back and forth visiting them, but like, you feel like, am I supposed to be visiting them? Am I not? Like, there's so many of those questions going around everywhere. I know a lot of like even elderly parents that, live by themselves. Like, their children are scared to go visit them. So that's just, I don't know, it's just kind of crazy to think about, just everything you have to question before you even just go and see your family or friends.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that's going on is like a double-edged sword. There's no perfect way to go around it, and either way, there has to be sacrifices.
Absolutely.
Whether they're financial or for your health or your family's health. It's really tough.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, it's definitely a different world outside that window. I don't know if you remember, I sent you this meme that I saw not too long ago. It was looking out the window, a picture of someone's window, and it had the title card, written and directed by David Lynch. That's what the world looks like out there right now,
Yeah, it's absolutely perfect. The way his films are, it's like, are we in an alternate reality? Because we're in our early 30s and nothing like this has ever happened.
Yeah, even like our parents haven't seen this,
Exactly.
So it's something that just looks like otherworldly to us. And I know you're such a fan of David Lynch, so that's why I had to send you that meme when I saw it. It's true, like, all of his films are all like these dark undertones that are just kind of a little twisted, and lately the world kind of feels like that. We have a virus, a pandemic, we have Trump as president, and, we have a 2020 election coming up. We have murder hornets. What else do we have? I don't know. What am I missing?
I know.
We all have to wear crazy. Like our masks now. It's like post-apocalyptic out there, It's very David Lynch.
I mean, and it has slowly gotten weirder and weirder as after Trump won his presidency.
I know a lot of people have thrown that theory out there. Are we in an alternate universe at this point, given 2016? Actually, talking about 2016, Wasn't it the year that everybody said, wow, this year has been shit? Where like so many celebrities died. I don't know exactly what else aside from the presidency and celebrities dying, but it was just this shit year for everybody. And now there's like a comparison between 2016 and 2020 where they're like, oh no, that wasn't bad. Now this is real bad right here.
I feel like that's been the case every year since 2016. It's like, oh, well, 2017 is a shit year. Oh, you know what? 2018 is a shit year.
Sure.
So are we like gonna get a global non-shit year?
Non-shit year. Yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know if it's like us just being so much more aware of things, like past the election with Trump, and just being like more in tune with like current events, or being more like vigilant of, you know, what's going on in the world, and if that's why things just seem to be like worse and worse, or if they literally are going worse and worse. I mean, we were talking about the wildfires in Australia just last year. We're talking about like these major catastrophic events, you know, and then global warming, of course, is still a major influence in our world right now, which hasn't been talked about much in recent newscasts, since we're just talking about murder hornets and pandemic. But
I mean, but the Earth has been healing.
This is true. There has been some sightings of more animals in cities, more nature coming back into cities.
The ozone layer is doing better.
Is it really? I haven't quite heard about that one.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked too much into it, but I heard it's
due to the pandemic. You're saying, like, okay,
yeah.
less smog.
Because we're not out there driving as much pollution.
Sure. I've seen like a couple people posting photos of LA, downtown LA, and it looks so clear. And I wonder how much of that is like from camera and how much of it is like edited.
Real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I for sure believe that it's cleared up. Mm-hmm. I don't know to what extent.
Sure.
If most people are staying home, of course, you know, the air is going to be a lot better for your lungs.
Right.
Than it has been. Because I've gone to LA and like I get a headache because I'm not used to the type of the quality of air that they have.
To breathe in pretty much smoke and not like actual oxygen. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, it's interesting to think about, like, does that in turn help us analyze like what can we do to keep this up post-pandemic? All this stuff is so much better for our environment and for ourselves, for our bodies.
I mean, I've seen kind of loose suggestions. I don't know if anything was like academic or serious, but like, what if we do this once a month every year?
Oh,
you know, just to kind of help the Earth out.
A little purge situation, but like in a positive light.
I mean, I wouldn't be against that.
Sure.
It would also be a time for people to focus on hanging out with their family and close friends, and not be focused on work and, you know, all the other responsibilities that we have.
Right.
It'd be nice to have like a month-long vacation
with like no travel, no planes, none of that. That's kind of crazy to imagine, like, that world. Like, it's
because the world we were living in before was so incredibly fast-paced, and like nobody ever really stopped to relax and take some time off.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, so, especially in our country here in the US, we're all about like churning out like work and money and like buying material things. Like, I know it's not only the US, but the US has a bad reputation for that kind of lifestyle where it's just like,
I mean, is the US the most capitalist country in the world?
I mean, I'm not 100% certain, but I want to say that I would probably agree with that. I mean, I haven't done quite the research, but I mean, from living here my entire life and growing up here, like, yeah, I feel like we are a very capitalist society, and not in a good way.
Because, I mean, you've traveled a lot and you've gone all around Europe. I'm sure it was a different atmosphere. I don't know if people are less concerned about the material there.
Right. I mean, it's very different. Europe is such a big, you know, place. There's so much different like cultures, and every culture kind of treats money and material a little bit differently, I would say. I think when I think of like places like Italy, especially if you're like ignoring like, I guess, like Milan, which is very much like fashion and like metropolitan, but like the rest of Italy, like they're all about gatherings, which is why I feel so sad for that poor country, because right now they can't do that. It's all about gatherings and the time that you spend with people. So it's a lot more about the connections you make with another human being than it is about spending money, than it is about buying the newest car, buying the newest, you know, I don't know.
Because if you have money for all of that, that means that you're kind of very individualistic and you're kind of focusing on yourself.
That's it. Mm-hmm.
You're not really spending time with other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Not in a bonding type of way.
Right.
So you spend a lot of time away from your family.
You spend a lot of time with your coworkers. That's practically it here. Yeah.
Which you may not like.
Yeah, may or may not. Yeah. But no, it's true. Like Italy, I think one of the biggest things that I realized was just how much community there was there. Even like in people my age and younger, it was always about, hey, I'm going to be cooking dinner at my apartment, at my flat. You should come over tonight and I'll feed you. Like cooking for your friends in your 20s, like that's so uncommon in the US. Like, yeah, there's probably some people in the US that do that. I'm not saying that everyone doesn't do this. But it's all about, hey, I'm making dinner tonight. I would love for you to come over and for so-and-so of your friends or roommates to come over and have a meal with me. Let's have a little bit of wine. Let's have a meal together. You can even help us cook if you're free, or if not, that's totally fine. You don't need to pitch in money. You can take care of the meal, you know, weeks or months from now. You can invite us over to your place. It's kind of like this very, I don't know, I love that kind of community aspect. It's something that I really long for here in my home country. Like, always long for it. It sounds so, like, cheesy to be like, I just came back from living in Europe and, like, oh, European life is so much better. No, that's not what I'm getting at. They have some things right. They have some things wrong, just like anywhere else. But that aspect of community is something that is so common in so many of the countries that I've traveled to that I do not see in the US very often. At least not where I live, in California, in San Diego, or when I've lived in LA. At least that's what I've seen firsthand.
I think a lot of what it is here in the US, what we consider to be successful or whatnot, like to reach that level of success, like what's expected of you, like you have to almost work all day, every day.
Right, that's success, nonstop. Right? Yeah, that's when you know you're successful.
Success here is not like, oh, you have a lot of friends. You have a family that you take care of, that you're able to enjoy every day.
Yeah.
Like that's not considered as successful here.
Right. Yeah, if you have all that and you're working just like, you know, a very modest job and a modest salary, then it's like, oh, it's seen here as like the family and the connection is not enough. What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, and you can also see it in the way that a lot of Americans treat the elderly. They just put them in nursing homes because it doesn't fit into their daily schedule to take care of,
yeah,
right, to take care of someone who raised you all your life and provided for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
But in Mexico, it's very common.
Yeah, you can see it in Mexico as well. Right? Yeah, Mexico, Italy, they're very similar culturally. And it's very true. Like in Italy and in Mexico, like the elderly are seen as like our angels on earth. You know,
they're so precious.
They're precious to us. They're like our wiser, more sweet human beings that we get to spend time with and like nurture and just love them. And I know both you and I don't have our grandparents around anymore, but when they were around, I know they were very important to both of us. And I do see that a lot in the two countries we're referring to, in Mexico and Italy, and in many other countries, many other European countries. And I'm sure in other countries that are outside of the US treat their elderly very respectfully. Not to say that there is people in the US that don't absolutely love their grandparents, but yeah, the whole idea of like just sending them off to this nursing home and, oh, I have to keep working, that's all I want to do, and I never make time to like take a few days off to take grandma or grandpa off to the countryside or on a vacation or to hang out with them and hear their stories. And I don't know, I just think we lose out on them when they're gone.
Once they're gone,
yeah,
there's even like in the last month that my grandma was here, there was stories she told me that she hadn't told me before.
Exactly.
So, and I lived like right next to her.
Mm-hmm.
And even, in my 30 years or whatnot, I feel like there's still so much that I didn't hear from her.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly it. We think we know our grandparents. We think we know our parents even. But there's so many stories that you learn from them if you just sit down and talk to them more, if you like try and break through that individualism that we've like cemented into our brains as Americans of just work, 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 work. If we just like try and connect with our family and our friends on a deeper level, there's so much that we learn about themselves and about, I guess, us as well. So, absolutely.
Money.
Money. I mean, it's like a double-edged sword. It really is. Like, who doesn't
Yeah.
want like,
Because I mean, there's also people that, they work super hard and are very successful. And with the money that they make, they use it to pay like nephews, nieces,
Mhm.
cousins, like their education and stuff like
Right,
that. But
absolutely.
it also comes at a price that you don't get to spend a lot of time with them. You can help them
Exactly.
financially, which, is a huge benefit, of course.
Mhm.
So yeah, like you said, there's kind of pros and cons to each side.
Right. And it's like seeing now, like during this whole pandemic, it's like I wonder if people are starting to like take things like for granted less in regards to those connections, like now being stuck at home with people that you may not spend every day with because of work and because of other obligations. Um, or the opposite, are you realizing that, maybe the life that you have is not really what you want? Are you coming to realization that this isn't where your happiness lies? Your happiness might be elsewhere. It might not be in the job. Might not be in the house that you're living in. It might not be with the people you're living with. It might be a bigger dream that you have kind of locked away for so long. And right now, maybe you're unemployed. Maybe you're laid off and you're just sitting there being like, I gave up so many dreams and so many of my years for the monetary and like in, I guess made up gain of success
Mm-hmm.
to give up my dream. And are people having those realizations more than ever right now? Because I feel like that's something that I've really been thinking about a lot lately. And I know a lot of my friends and that I've been having conversations with lately have felt very similar.
You can't escape your home right now,
Yeah.
so it's yeah, you anybody is going to really realize if that's where they want to be or not.
Exactly. And if you feel like you are where you're meant to be, that must be a beautiful feeling. Like, I'm not saying that I don't feel happy where I'm at. Like, I feel like I am learning to find my way more than ever right now. But for the people that are so happy right now where they're at, that is such a beautiful moment right now to be able to just like spend time with those people, spend time with yourself, the beautiful, ideas of like stillness and slowing down and all of that. So, but for those that aren't, this is the perfect time to ask the questions, to reassess your life, you as a person, reassess your future, where you want to be, where you feel like you will be happy, and not just like where you will be stable financially, where you will be happy internally. So,
Yes, and a lot of it is also attitude. I know that's kind of cliche to say,
mm-hmm.
but if you are unhappy in your home, you might want to ask yourself why.
Why? Yeah.
Is it because of the people that you live with, or is something from yourself because
Mm-hmm.
you're going through mental health issues or whatnot? Like it's very hard, I think, to be completely happy when your mental health is not, at 100%, or not 100,
Right.
but like let's say 90, 80%.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna maybe point fingers a lot, like it's because my dad or my mom, because they do this, and because of where I live, etc. Like these are the reasons why I'm not happy.
Sure.
And a lot of the times it could be affecting you, but you also want to question, Like, what is it inside of my own head? Why do I, like, avoid negative thinking? Like I said, I know that's kind of cliche, but
No, it's true. It is harder to actually do something like that than just say ignore your negative thoughts and whatnot. But I think this is the perfect time, as we've mentioned, to put in that like work and reassess yourself and your circumstances and your surroundings. And how are you going to be a better person after this? How are you going to go back into the world when this is all done? May it be a couple months or even a year. We have no idea when the world might start to look a little bit more like what we were used to. Are you going to come out a stronger, better person, more fulfilled, more self-loving, or are you going to come out scared, fearful, um, irritable? You get to kind of choose that. Of course, I'm not saying that everyone has the ability to really do all of that self-work right now. If you are struggling to even feed your family, if you're struggling to even find somewhere to sleep tonight because you might be homeless now, like, I understand there's those circumstances and that not everybody's going to be able to do that. But I think a lot of us have that time right now. At least in my immediate circle, I think a lot of us have that time.
And that's another good point for the people that can't.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know where they're going to sleep tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a roof over your head and you have a meal 3 times a day, if you, reminding yourself of things that you're grateful for is definitely beneficial.
Absolutely.
I feel like nothing works like being grateful in terms of combating negative thoughts or mental health problems. Like, really look at, how privileged you may be.
Right. And it really does kind of take a little bit of redefining of what gratitude means. Because we're like, oh, I was able to, I don't know, not be thirsty today. I had access to clean water. But that isn't like on a day-to-day basis. That doesn't like, oh, we're not grateful because I got to drink a bottle of water. You know what I mean? But if you sit down and you compare your privilege, you get to be like, wow, I was able to have access to clean water today, to nourish my body, to keep me alive. I get to live another day, and I get to thrive another day. Like little things. I get to go on a walk today. It's so hard to even go out on walks without crossing paths with people, but it gives you the anxiety of like, okay, I have to have my mask on and everything, but like even just getting the fresh air, you're like, I am grateful that today I got to feel the sun instead of just being inside my apartment or my home. I'm grateful that I got to web chat with like a close friend of mine or a friend I hadn't talked to in years, but the conversation still flowed, so naturally.
And be in a situation where you don't have a roof, you don't have food.
Right.
Like, that's so scary. Like, yes, our lives are different, but we're not in danger.
Yeah, we're not like starving quite yet.
Yeah, we're not in a perceivable danger.
Yeah. It's crazy to think about that though, because a lot of industries are being affected, and as is like the food industry in regards to grocery stores, and there's a whole shortage going on with beef and pork.
Yeah, I went to Wendy's the other day and there was like so many things scratched off the menu.
Oh, really? I didn't realize that.
Order.
Yeah, there's a big shortage going on. And it's really sad to hear about what we're doing to these poor animals, these poor living creatures. They're being raised for food. These factories have an abundance of these animals ready to be like killed and taken to butcher shops and to grocery stores. But I've since heard that there's a lot of factories where people were getting sick from the virus, the pandemic. So the manufacturing factories themselves are just kind of stopping production on meat. So now they have all of these animals, and they're like, we can't process them the way we usually do, so we're going to go ahead and euthanize them because there's too many of them. And we don't have the processing facilities or the workers able to process all of the pork, all of the beef. So that's really sad. It's like that goes to show you like the dark side of like the food industry in our country, and
I
how
think
how this pandemic
most
affected it. Yeah.
the most positive outcome that can come from this is that we kind of do a switch over globally to vegan food, or plant-based foods.
Right. Or
Maybe still eat meat, but not to the level
not to the level that we consume it. Like having these huge factories with a bunch of animals that you literally just are spewing through, like it's not even natural anymore. It's not farmers raising cattle, it's not farmers raising pigs and, selling them to butchers. It's factories. It's like that's just devoiding like these poor animals of. I'm not even vegan myself, but I still have so much respect for taking the life of a living thing for the sake of consumption and for the sake of feeding me and keeping me alive. But I don't feel like I necessarily need to eat it. Like I don't need to eat meat, and I don't know. It's just like this whole thing where I'm just like I can't believe that we've gotten to the point where now if a factory and its workers get sick and the factory stops production, that we have to euthanize these animals now. That just seems like excess in our country. And I know you you yourself don't eat red meat and pork.
Yeah, and now even maybe it's been the last 2 years that I even really struggle with eating chicken. I mean, it depends how I eat it, but sometimes I'm just chewing on it and I'm like, I'm eating, something that was
alive.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually was vegetarian for about 2 years. I think it was like soon after I met you and I moved to LA that I converted to vegetarianism for about 2 years. And that was rather easy, actually. Like I let go of it for so long that I was like not even craving it. Like it was like, oh, it kind of grossed me out, much the same way that it grosses you out currently. But I think it was actually chicken that for some reason 2 years later I like suddenly got the craving for chicken. And chicken is like everywhere. It's like such a massively produced meat. And to me, it was just like, oh, I'll just start off with chicken. And like, I was really just craving it. But it goes to show you that even when we're consuming meat, we need to know where it's coming from. We need to know how these animals are being treated. And it's sad that we've steered so far away from like the ability to raise the chicken by like a person, by human hands, by a farmer, that now it's like machines. You're raising it from like birth to death to grocery store display, and it's nothing but these machines. It's just, I don't know, it's just kind of very, I don't know, it's a weird image to think about these living creatures going through that.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably honestly be vegan myself if it was more affordable. And
vegan, you said? Not vegetarian?
I mean, probably slowly go from vegetarianism to veganism. I mean, I've been vegetarian before in the past too, and it's a lot easier when you can eat dairy, because dairy is absolutely everywhere.
Right, it is.
Unless you go to a vegan restaurant.
Right.
But I mean,
or you're cooking your own meals, which also takes a lot of time. But I guess right now is the perfect time to do that. Yeah, you can get started with some vegan recipes during this pandemic. That's actually a great thing to look into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not opposed to anybody eating meat. I don't look down upon it. But like you said, it's the way that the animals are raised and treated like they're objects.
Right. Yeah, like they're giving up their life to sustain your life. So I think they need to be respected a lot more. Definitely. They're not to be treated like, like disposable.
And I think the way the animals are in these factories, like they're aware what they do to the other animals and what's going to happen to them soon. So that's like their entire life, right? Is knowing.
Yeah, pigs are like supposed to be incredibly smart beings. Very I feel like sentient, like they feel a lot of similar emotions as like a human, from what I've heard. I do think, if not going directly to vegetarianism and veganism as like a society, which is unlikely to happen, you know. I think we do have to kind of analyze how these animals are to be treated in these factories and how our relationship to meat and animal products um, should be looked at a little bit more, especially when we're just like, we're really displaced when we just look at a package of meat on a, you know, grocery store like display. We don't see an animal. You know, the gross stuff has been done by a third party, by a factory.
Mm-hmm.
So we see like, oh, good food. We see burgers. We don't see like a cow. We see beef. We even changed the name. We don't even call it cow. We call it beef. You know, much for a pig, we don't call it pig. We're not eating pig. We're eating pork. We have like these, you know, we change it around so it devoids itself of like being an animal. It's more like, someone else did like the dirty work for me, but this looks delicious, and I'm gonna go make some pork chops. I'm gonna go make some burgers. And I mean, no offense to anyone that eats it, because I eat that. Like it's just saying more like, how do we relate to it? It also goes back to how much of that meat we waste. You know, that's like living, or once living, you know, flesh, once living meat, and it's just like now it's just being tossed away to a landfill. That's just like so barbaric.
A life wasted.
Yeah.
So you just end up in the trash can.
Right. Exactly. So I feel like that has to be looked at a little bit more. We need to reduce how much food we waste, especially when it's an animal product. We should not be wasting any animal product. That's really my 2 cents. So, but talking about all of, you know, the craziness that's going on with meat factories and whatnot, I wanted to go back to how we're seeing the world now with like different eyes. I feel like we're seeing both the good and the bad of humanity. It's being like magnified. Like if we put like a magnifying glass up to our humanity in recent months. And it's been really interesting to see like almost this yin and yang of the human experience, like, or the human faults and the human perseverance. So it's really interesting to just kind of really assess where we are as a society. If anything, I think this is kind of I mean, I don't want to say it's like this godsend that we are going through this awful pandemic and that people are dying left and right. Like I'm terribly sorry for those that have lost people and those that have become ill with this virus, people that are struggling financially, that, you know, are just in a very hard place right now. But it's also kind of like this catalyst of sorts for us to figure out where we are as a society, where we want to go after this pandemic, and even more so, like individually, where are we and where do we want to be in this world after this pandemic ends, or tends to kind of go away. We don't even know if it's going to go away permanently, but at least in a sense, when we open up the world again, the economies open up and everything, where are we going to be as a society and as people?
I mean, I think we're definitely, everybody is on a whole is going to be a lot more careful.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to go back to being in large crowds and groups the way we were before.
Right. Yeah, we have so many cancellations lately. Everything's canceled. It's film festivals are canceled, concerts are canceled. Who knows when we're going to be able to gather in large public spaces like that.
Yeah, and in terms of education, is that ever going to go completely back to normal?
Right.
Are they going to say, hey, we're spending a lot less money by just having some professor record and then you watch him
right on Zoom or whatever?
Yeah, and I mean, the quality of education though has definitely gone down, and I feel sorry for everybody that has paid for an education that they're
not receiving right now. Yeah. Especially those that are about to graduate this like May and June. Like they're coming into a very different world than when they started as freshmen at these universities. They're going to be looking for work, be looking for jobs in a market that's just not going to be there for them. So that's really
And
scary too.
yeah, and I think now with the pandemic, we've always had this big fear in the recent, I don't know, last 10 years or so of school shootings and shootings in
Right.
general. So now there's a fear of that still, and now we
Mm-hmm.
have fear of microorganisms. So
Right. Yeah, no, it's a
it's
hard. I
yeah.
mean, we say that millennials have it hard, but I feel really bad for this new generation of like younger people that are just going to be going into the world as adults for the first time, and there's no jobs for them. There's no promise of that great job after you got your, I don't know, engineering degree. So I don't know, it's just very difficult. They don't even get to do their ceremonies, their graduation ceremonies. So that must be really stressful for them and their families.
Yeah, it's just a new way of figuring out how to navigate this new world.
Mhm.
I personally would have been okay with not walking. That's just
Sure.
me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know like for a lot of people that's kind of the goal
That's the
that you
cherry
get
on
to.
top. Yeah, you need to
Yeah.
do your walk and your graduation ceremony. Mostly to, make your family proud. Who knows how much sacrifice your family put forth for you to be in this position. So, yeah.
And how are they, because they're very young, so they haven't lived a lot in the world that we've known.
Sure.
So for them, it's like everything is digital.
Yeah.
So how is
Everything.
that going to affect you mentally and socially
Right.
when you actually have to go out?
Are you going to have those communication skills the way that we've built, at least
And I know millennials are kind of laughed at for not having the same social skills
mhm.
because we have our cell phones and our computers. But,
Right.
we still have a ton of face-to-face interactions.
Yeah, but now this new
But
generation of younger kids, yeah, that might look a lot different. It was already starting to look a lot different even before this pandemic, but now it's like even their university and college is now digital. So it's like, yeah, it removes a lot of that human to human contact for them, and I wonder how that's affecting younger people too. Didn't even
I
think
mean,
about that.
also, how is it going to affect us?
Hmm.
Even if we were used to it before, now
Yeah.
having been like this for how long has it been?
I know. I mean,
2 months?
we're May 9th, so I believe March 14, 15 is with when California went into lockdown at least. Something like that.
Yeah. So, I mean, even for me, the thought of going back to work is a little bit weird
Mhm.
because because what is it, 30 days for you to get used to something?
Right. And now you're becoming used to the lockdown and the isolation.
Yeah, in a sense, I am.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, I would go back to work it,
Yeah.
if it opened up again, but how would I feel?
Yeah. Might
I
be a
don't
learning
know.
curve once again. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about because how is it going to feel when we finally get to go to a grocery store and not feel concerned about how close you are to the cashier or something? Um, or the first time you get to hug a friend that you haven't seen in months. That's just crazy to think about. Like you and I, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast, had one interaction since the lockdown in person.
and it
But
was sad
and
because
it
you
was
had your window open like this much, and we had to drop off something in your trunk. So there
yeah,
was,
there was no hug.
the yeah, and the barrier of the car and the window.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know I felt that strong pull, like I want to invite you in and I want to do stuff. I
And
mean,
hang
obviously we
out.
didn't do that, but it's yeah, there's a sadness to like when you actually see people, you meet up with somebody that you know and that you miss, but you can't do anything.
Right, right. And it's really crazy to think about how much um, we were doing like just before this whole thing hit. Like you were out there promoting that movie White Ink with some uh, friends of yours. It was, if you want to tell us a little bit about it, it was like submitted and it got into Latino Film
Yeah,
Festival
so
and.
we were doing the festival rounds
Mhm.
and we were promoting out in Coronado. because it was going to premiere at the San Diego Latino Film
Yeah.
Festival. And then that very day, we
It was
found
that
out
same evening. Yeah.
that the Latino Film Festival was postponed.
Mm-hmm.
And slowly the other festivals that it was accepted into also were postponed.
Right.
The writer producer Shelley Rowe, she sent out an email to everyone recently that
Mm-hmm.
because they also got into the Nice International Film Festival, and we were getting ready for
In
that,
France, yeah.
and it was going to be this really big event, and they were going to treat us nice and all. And I mean, it was something so exciting to look forward to, and now it's reduced to like the awards being announced via webcam
Oh
or
man, yeah, that's such a
chat.
different experience. That's
Yeah,
definitely
maybe not
not.
webcam, but still, how can you compare that kind of experience to
To
just
a film festival. Yeah, a film festival where you have a bunch of people having eyes on your project that you've worked so hard on. Like they're all there in the same room with you, and you get to just hear like how people are perceiving your film. It's a very different experience. Um, and I know that you and I had really had a lot of plans for filming stuff this year, and things just kind of got sidetracked now. So we have to put those projects on the back burner, and we don't even know what the film industry is going to look like once we open the economy back up. There's talks at the major studios right now about maybe opening up productions at the end of the year, but regardless, still keeping to minimal crew and social distancing rules. So how is that going to be working on a set where you constantly are having to work with one another in close proximity?
I
So,
mean, we've already seen a huge reduction of quality on television,
yep.
and I'm afraid we're going to see that for film too if you can't have these big teams, because filmmaking is such a team effort.
Right.
And when you can only have a few people, I mean, we've been there, and the projects don't always turn out the way we anticipate because you're limited with your resources, and
Right.
you people take on multiple hats, and
Right.
it's always better for people to be focused on one job, like one or two jobs.
Right. It's just
But
so
now,
crazy. It's just like I can't even imagine like how that's going to look like having like the social distancing on a big production by like a studio.
and with actors who, I mean, I feel like the rest of the crew can maybe kind of keep their distance,
But
but
actors, like the script has to be written in a way where you're never that close to one another. I don't know. Where you're wearing your
yeah,
mask.
that's so weird and interesting.
Yeah, that's very difficult to imagine. I
I
mean,
mean, will a lot of it go back to just doing animations
that's true.
and voiceovers?
Right. Which is kind of sad like for the filmmakers. Like where are there going to be jobs? There's going to be like no jobs for the actors, for the directors, for the I mean the directors maybe, but I don't know, the grip, the electric, the crafty. Where are they going to go? It's just all these people are unemployed right now. And we're in San Diego, so we're not like seeing it to the mass scale that our neighbors up in LA are seeing it as. We're like half of the city is probably unemployed right now because we know that half of the city works in the industry. So I don't know. It's just so hard to say how we open up and how it's going to look. I know there's going to be plenty of scripts in the studios about pandemics and hornets, murder hornets. But who knows if these scripts will even be produced? I don't know. There's a lot of movies that have theatrical releases this year that have been pushed to next year. Mulan, I was excited for that one. That one's been pushed to next summer. So
I mean, I wonder if these companies are going to start releasing their films on Netflix if they were
right.
already completed.
Take the Alfonso Cuarón route with Netflix release.
Please just share it with us.
Right.
Even if we can't be in a movie theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talking about movie theaters, I mean, I'm a little worried for that whole industry themselves. How does that look after the pandemic? Are they even going to be able to reopen? Are they going to go bankrupt? I mean, there's no ticket sales coming in right now. At least productions, like, there might be some, like, money coming in or, finances that were already established before the film went into production. But movie theaters, like, they rely
I
on
mean,
ticket sales, concession sales, all that.
one of the areas at my work is a theater with like a
Hmm.
50-person capacity, and that was the first thing that shut down
Right. Too close
because
proximity.
you're in an enclosed space and a
Yeah.
close proximity. So
Right.
I have no idea how that's gonna work.
Right. That's really scary to see where that might go. I mean, AMC supposedly was having some issues very early on in the pandemic already financially, so I don't know where they're at now. Um, and if they are looking to go bankrupt or what. So that would be really scary to see it. I'm sure in theaters as a whole won't completely disappear after this, but that would really be weird to see. Like, no more like big cinemas. It'll maybe just be like small little like mom and pop shop cinemas that
I've
might stay
heard
open.
also kind of like the drive-throughs, no,
The drive-ins?
drive-in,
Yeah.
drive-in theaters coming back.
Right. Yeah, I know the drive-in theater near my place is actually reopening this Friday.
Nice.
I looked through their regulations and rules during this whole thing, and yeah, they're reopening this Friday. So we'll see how many people show up. If it's that many people, they might have to turn people away. I think they have like two or three different screens, so they have plenty of capacity, but maybe just in the hundreds. Doubt that they can bring in thousands of cars into that space. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting. Now we're going to be reverting back to drive-ins. I mean, I'm all for drive-ins. Of course, the quality of the screen and the image isn't quite as grand as being like in a movie theater. Um, but it's a different experience and it's a wonderful experience. I still really enjoy going to drive-ins, and I'm really lucky that there's one really close by to me. I think it's the one of the two remaining ones in the San Diego County area, so that's always really cool.
There used to be one in National City. I don't
Yeah,
know
I
if that
remember
one
there was
shut
a third
down.
one. That one shut down some years ago. Yeah, that one's no
It might
longer there.
reopen though. We'll
I
see.
know right now, given the circumstances, they might put some money into remodeling it and bringing it back. Um, yeah, but I mean, talking about movies, we were talking about David Lynch a little bit earlier and a little bit about meditation. And I got thinking about how David Lynch actually promotes meditation himself. I was reading that he founded a meditation foundation. Ha, that rhymes. Meditation foundation that instills um, teaching meditation to young kids in schools, which is such an eye-opening way to think about it. Like, I never thought that like young children could benefit from meditation, but that sounded like a great program. David Lynch runs it, or at least funds it. It was founded by him, and for being someone that creates such dark imagery in his films and in his stories, it's really back to the whole yin and yang thing where he balances the light and the dark with meditation and like spirituality to some extent, and then dark, twisted, really somber imagery, you know? I don't know what your take is on that.
Yeah, he's definitely very quirky and an interesting human being.
Absolutely.
One of the most fascinating things I've found about him, and maybe it's because he's very spiritual and meditates and all of this,
Mm-hmm.
like money seems kind of, maybe trivial isn't the right word, but he's not so focused on that as somebody who is a director and makes films. Because he was even offered by George Lucas to direct the third episode,
Oh,
and he said
really?
no. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
he knew that it wasn't something that was for him, even though he
Mm-hmm.
would lose out on millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But he just didn't want to do something that wasn't true to himself.
That makes
And it kind
sense.
of, I really love that spirit. You don't see that a lot in Hollywood.
Right. He's not looking for just the credits and the money in the work he takes on. He wants to be telling the stories he wants to tell, and he wants to be, you know, making them the way he wants, where he doesn't want like someone coming in with financial like means but being like, "Oh, but I want the movie to do this or I want them to have this actor." He wants to have more control.
Yeah, I think also like he's just very self-aware.
Mhm.
He knew it in his heart, or his mind, that he wouldn't create the Star Wars that George Lucas was envisioning. And like he could have created or directed Star Wars, but it would have been a very different Star Wars that we know now.
Right. He knew that he couldn't create that world, that it wasn't his cup of tea kind of thing.
Yeah, not the way George Lucas would
Right,
do it.
right.
I mean,
That makes
he
sense.
ended up bringing up somebody else to direct it because George Lucas is also like, he knows that directing is not his forte.
Right.
He said that himself, and that's probably why the prequels were not, were not the best, because he ended up directing those.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a wonderful creator, but he
Mm-hmm.
knew his limits and wanted to have other people directing. I don't know why, honestly, he ended up directing the prequels. I never looked into that, but I'd be curious.
Yeah, that'd
as
be
to
interesting to look into. Absolutely.
Because he didn't direct the second or the third episode. I think he only directed A New Hope, right?
I'm actually not even 100% sure which ones he didn't direct.
Yeah, I think he only directed A New Hope.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I should double check that.
There you go. But yeah, it's really interesting to like think about how David Lynch is like this creator of like almost sinister characters and sinister like places. But yet he seems like this very sweet guy who obviously founded this meditation foundation for youth. And it's just so interesting to see why that is. I'd be so curious to know and sit down with him and like ask him like where that comes from it within him. Like, are these just like really dark images that you see in your dreams? Are they fears of your own that you're putting out onto your art to kind of release them? Like, are you like, these are the images that get you like nervous or fearful or that you want to like let go of, like talking about negative thoughts earlier. Like we all have these negative thoughts, and we feel
Everybody.
like, oh, what?
Everybody has
Everybody,
them.
yeah, everybody has them, and it's such a crazy program to think about him of all people, like funding and founding this whole program. So
he's advocating peace in a sense.
Yeah. He's kind of advocating like inner peace and tranquility and compassion and all these things, but yet it's like these sinister, dark images. Just kind of releasing them into his art to kind of let go of them, and in turn feeling lighter, feeling like they're not my self, they're just thoughts that I come up with, but they're not me, they're not my true self. So I just like put them into my art, At least that's what I'm thinking. Obviously, I don't know the guy personally, but it's just really interesting to think about like where that whole balance comes in for him between meditation.
He could see it. I mean, like you said, we don't know him.
Yeah.
He's not here to ask him, but he could also view it as extensions of himself.
That's
and putting it somewhere.
Putting the outside. Dark self somewhere. Yeah, that's a good way to put it too. Yeah.
Because I know like in a lot of his films and even Twin Peaks, a lot of the motifs of having darkness contained in a box, that's so true. Like in somebody else.
Mulholland Drive, it was like that blue box.
Yeah, and then in Twin Peaks we saw it in Bob.
Oh, contained in a person and a character.
Yeah, and I don't know if you saw. Did you see the newest Twin Peaks episodes?
I actually started watching it. I just didn't continue with it. To me, it just didn't have like the same feel, obviously, as like
it was darker.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I enjoyed of the original. It was dark, but it was quirky and weird and silly sometimes.
It had a lot of its light moments. It was a balance.
Yeah.
And so when he came back 25 years later,
yeah,
it was mostly dark.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
It was hard. Not gonna lie, it was hard in some episodes to sit through it.
Right.
Because I'm just like,
yeah. Yeah, I started watching it. It was just a little too Lynch for me, I guess.
I think it was in the first few episodes though where they managed to capture darkness. It was like in this glass box.
Oh, that's right. I do remember that. Yeah, that image in the beginning. Yeah. Where that guy in his room or apartment.
I think there's always that motif of darkness manifested in some way and containing it.
I like that. I like that a lot. That might be my next visualization of meditating. I'll imagine the box and evil and dark thoughts can be contained in that box, and I'll be like, you are outside of the box. You're not anywhere near the evilness and the darkness. But yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
interesting to think about his
I think he
inspiration for
plays
all this.
that he plays with the idea that we all have darkness inside of us too.
Yeah.
And there's always like two realities, it
Mm-hmm.
seems, in a lot of his work too,
Yeah.
where, you know, goodness has one and where evil has one.
That's true. That's true. There's always like the two sides in his films, and
I think you
sure.
also sent me an article a long time ago about how Gilmore Girls was supposed to be
in
Twin
the same
Peaks,
world.
but yeah,
That was
but,
such
you know,
a
where
weird
things
article. I'm not sure to what extent that's like real. But it was very funny to see like the similarities and how they said that, oh yeah, it's supposed to be in the same world or like in the same era or something. I don't know. It was very strange. That article had a lot of very interesting things to say.
I think it was also supposed to be too like Twin Peaks if Twin Peaks, you know, hadn't gone
Right.
like if it hadn't gone really bad.
Sure. Like that's the town
The
before
normal
Twin
one.
Peaks. It's funny because I think there's like the same actress from like Twin Peaks is in Gilmore Girls.
Was it Sherilyn?
Something like that.
One that played Audrey?
Yes,
Yeah, she was
Audrey's character, exactly.
And you know what? I only recognized her in one role, but apparently she played two roles.
She did play two, which is so funny. Yeah, I saw that too, and I'm like, I never noticed that. That's so insane.
Yeah, there's a ton of parallels between.
Yeah, it's
Gilmore
always
Girls
fun
and
to
Twin
see
Peaks.
that, like seeing parallels between like different stories and films, and being like, oh, like these could fit into the same world, even though they're not written or directed by the same people. Sometimes
it's possible the writers or producers were huge fans of Twin Peaks. I wouldn't doubt that.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it too. There's still a lot of that like quirkiness thrown in there, like the
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, the things that don't feel like reality in that show, much like Twin Peaks.
What was the name of the town in Gilmore Girls?
Stars Hollow. Yeah, even the name sounds like fantastical. It doesn't sound realistic.
It is very quirky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Not in a dark way, but
right, it's a little bit more lighthearted, but it's still kind of doesn't feel like it fits into our world or our reality per se. It's kind of a little bit like a heightened reality or something. Well, yeah, Claudia, thank you so much for going through this whole ordeal with me here on our pilot episode. It's been so great to kind of touch base with you about so many topics today. We covered meditation, yoga, David Lynch and his craziness. What else?
Mental health.
Mental health during this pandemic, of course. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you, and I hope that you are well and that you continue to keep active and writing. I know it's very difficult during these times, but I can't wait to see what you write next, and I hope that we can produce some films, if not this year, hopefully next. We'll have to see what kind of world we live in come 2021, and I guess let's just kind of keep putting in the self-work. Any advice you want to give to our listeners in regards to what we discussed? Any last thoughts?
Get enough rest. There's nothing like enough rest for your mental health.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And make sure you have at least one outlet. Like we were talking about, you know, you don't have to be productive every single day, but have an outlet and de-stress and sleep enough.
And sleep, yeah.
I would say.
No better antidepressant than some good sleep. All right, Claudia, thank you so much. It's been great.
Thank you so much for having me. This was great. I had a lot of fun.
Thank you, Claudia.
I love talking to you. So
we
always have weird conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you very, very soon.
All right, take care.